All right, here are the answers to those modern progress questions, so check and make sure you got those correct. Okay, so now we're going to talk about solving equations, and we're going to use completing the square to solve them. So, if we're given x squared minus 16x equals negative 15, then how are we going to solve for x? Well, if we have two x's, normally we have to do something like factor, right? Because we have an x squared plus an x, and we can't combine those, so we need to figure out a way to separate them. Well, now we can do completing the square. So, we have x squared minus 16x equals negative 15. So your first step is always going to be to get your constant on the other side, which it already is, right? We already have negative 15 on the other side. And now we can figure out what we want to add to this side to make that a perfect square. And if we're adding it to that side, we need to add it to this side as well. We need to add it to both sides. That's one of the most common mistakes is people forget to add it to the other side as well. So if we have negative 16 divided by 2, that would be negative 8. And negative 8 squared is going to be 64. So that means we want to add 64 to both sides. So we have x squared minus 16x plus 64 equaling negative 15 plus 64 is going to be 49. So now we can rewrite the left side as x minus 8 squared, right? And then it was important that we made sure we added 64 to our right side, so we have 49. Okay, so now that we have x minus 8 squared equals 49, we can solve by just taking square roots like we did in 4.3. So the square root of x minus 8 squared is going to be x minus 8. And then the square root of 49 is plus or minus 7. Make sure you always have the plus or minus. We'll add 8 over. So we get x equals 8 plus or minus 7. So that means we have x equals 8 plus 7. And x equals 8 minus 7. 8 plus 7 is 15. 8 minus 7 is 1. And those would be your two answers. Okay, let's look at the next one. So we have another equation, but this time what's different is we have a coefficient in front of our x squared, right? We have 2x squared plus 20x minus 8 equals 0. So when we're trying to make a square, if we had 2x squared in our first box, the only thing that multiplies by itself to get 2 is the square root of 2. So we would have to do the square root of 2x times the square root of 2x, right? Since squares have to have the same side lengths. But we don't really want to do that, right? We want to deal with square roots the least amount of possible as we can. So what we're going to do is just divide each side by 2. You get x squared plus 10x minus 4 equals 0. You can also move the 8 to the other side and then divide by 2. It doesn't matter which order you do it in. So now we're going to add 4 over. So we get x squared plus 10x plus blank equals 4 plus blank, right? Whatever we do to one side, we have to do the other. So if we do 10 divided by 2, that's going to be 5. 5 squared is 25, so that means we're adding 25 to both sides. So on the left, we have x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 4 plus 25 is 29. Then we can rewrite the left side as x plus 5 squared, right? Because half of 10 is 5 and 5 squared is 25 equals 29. Okay, now again, we're going to take our square roots of both sides. So on the left, we'll get x plus 5. And on the right, we'll get plus or minus the square root of 29. Even if you can't simplify a square root, you still need the plus or minus in front of it. Now when we subtract 5, we'll have x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 29. Now on your homework, instead of giving this answer, it will mostly ask you to approximate it. So that means you type it in x and then say x is approximately 1 point something, and you'll round to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 decimal places. Okay, so try these mounting progress questions really quick, and then I'll give you the answers. All right, for number 1, you should have got x equals -1 and 3. For number 4, I guess, not number 1. Number 5, you should have got m equals -6 plus or minus 2i. So this one had a negative square root that you had to simplify and get that I. And then for 6, g is equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of 7. Okay, and on this one you had a 3g squared, so you had to divide everything by 3. And that is all for completing the square.